The laughter started before Solomon Postle even turned off the engine. Bright luxury cars filled the racing club parking lot. Perfect paint. Perfect chrome. Perfect lives. Then Solomon's rusty gray sedan rolled through the gate coughing smoke like it might die at any second. People instantly pulled out their phones. One man laughed so hard he nearly dropped his drink. Another pointed at the car and shouted, "That thing belongs in a junkyard!" Inside the car, Solomon tightened his grip on the steering wheel, while his 10-year-old son Seth Postle stared silently at the floor. Then a woman in a white designer coat slowly walked toward them smiling. Angelina Lambert. Luxury car influencer. Rich. Famous. Cruel. She circled Solomon's car before laughing loudly. "You actually brought your son here in this embarrassment?" The crowd exploded with laughter. But then something strange happened. An older man standing near the back suddenly froze. His drink slipped from his hand. And in a trembling voice he whispered words that silenced the entire parking lot. "I've been searching for that car for 30 years. Before we go deeper into this case, take a second and hit the subscribe button, give this video a like, and let us know where you're watching from. I'm curious to know how far these stories travel. Because what happened next changed one struggling father's life forever. Solomon Postle lived above a laundromat near the edge of town. The apartment was small. The walls shook every time the machines downstairs started running. Some nights the noise kept him awake until morning. But Solomon stayed grateful anyway. Because after losing his wife, survival mattered more than comfort. Every morning he woke before sunrise. Not because he wanted to. Because life demanded it. He quietly moved through the apartment, while his son Seth slept near the window. He was 10 years old. Quiet. Observant. And already carrying stress no child should feel. Solomon looked at him every morning before work. That was what kept him moving. Even when bills piled higher every month. He walked into the kitchen and opened the refrigerator. A few eggs. Cheap bread. Half a carton of milk. Not much else. Still, when Seth walked out rubbing his eyes, Solomon smiled anyway. "Morning, champ." "Morning, Dad." He sat beside him while breakfast cooked on the old stove. Outside sat the old gray car everyone laughed at. The paint peeled near the doors. The engine rattled constantly. The passenger window barely worked. But Solomon protected that car carefully. Without it, he could not work. Without work, they lost everything. Every morning he drove across town to Cooper Dean's repair garage. The smell of oil and metal filled the building. Cooper tossed him a wrench the second he walked inside. "You look exhausted." "Rent's due next week," Solomon answered quietly. Cooper nodded slowly. He knew things were getting worse. Business slowed down. Bills kept growing. Some nights Solomon skipped dinner so Seth could eat more. But he never complained openly. Around lunch, Cooper glanced outside toward Solomon's old car. "You ever think about racing again?" Solomon immediately stiffened. "No." The answer came too quickly. Too sharply. Most people saw Solomon as just another struggling mechanic. Nobody knew he once raced underground years earlier. Nobody knew older racers still remembered his talent. That life disappeared after his wife passed away. Now survival was all that mattered. Every afternoon Solomon picked Seth up from school in the noisy gray sedan. And every afternoon he noticed the looks from other parents. Luxury SUVs. Perfect smiles. Then Solomon arriving in his rusted car sounding like falling metal. One afternoon a boy pointed toward the sedan and laughed loudly. "That thing sounds broken." Several kids laughed with him. Seth quietly climbed inside. Solomon pretended not to hear it. But later that night he found him staring silently out the apartment window. "You okay?" He shrugged softly. Then whispered words that crushed him inside. "I wish people were nicer to you, Dad." Solomon sat beside him quietly. "Some people only respect money." Seth looked up at him. "But I know who you really are." His eyes watered instantly. Before we continue, if you were raising a child alone while people constantly judge your life, how would you keep going? Share your thoughts below. Because Solomon had no idea how much his life was about to change. 3 days later, Cooper walked into the garage carrying a flyer. You need to see this. Solomon barely looked up from the engine he was fixing. I'm busy. Cooper dropped the flyer onto the counter anyway. Luxury Racing Exhibition. Downtown Raceway Club. Huge prize for rare vehicle restorations. Solomon laughed immediately. You serious? Cooper pointed toward the parking lot. That car of yours isn't normal. Solomon felt his stomach tighten instantly. Years earlier, his father warned him never to let collectors inspect the car closely. At the time, Solomon ignored it. Now Cooper kept bringing it up more often. It's junk, Solomon muttered. No, Cooper answered quietly. It's hidden. Solomon looked away. The car originally belonged to his father. Underneath the rust and cheap replacement parts sat an older racing frame hidden carefully from view. But Solomon never cared enough to investigate. Life became about survival instead. Rent. Food. Bills. That was his world. Cooper lowered his voice. You need money. Those words hurt because they were true. 2 nights earlier, Solomon's landlord threatened eviction. Seth needed shoes. The car needed repairs again. Everything felt like it was collapsing. Finally, Solomon sighed heavily. Fine. The race club parking lot looked like another universe. Bright sports cars lined the entrance. People walked around wearing expensive clothes and carrying fancy drinks. Then Solomon's rusty sedan rolled through the gate coughing smoke. Heads turned instantly. Laughter followed immediately. Jack Morton walked toward him smiling arrogantly. You lost, buddy? Several people nearby laughed loudly. Solomon stayed calm. I'm here for the exhibition. Jack blinked slowly. With that thing? More laughter exploded around them. Seth lowered his head in embarrassment. Then Angelina Lambert appeared. Cameras instantly followed her. She circled Solomon's car while filming. Oh wow, she laughed. This might be the saddest car I've ever seen. The crowd roared again. Then Angelina looked directly toward Seth. You actually ride around in this? That hurt more than anything else. Because Seth whispered softly, Dad, maybe we should leave. For the first time in his life, he sounded ashamed. And that shattered Solomon inside. Before we go deeper, tell me honestly. If strangers mocked your child publicly while recording everything online, what would you do in Solomon's position? I really want to hear your thoughts. Angelina smirked toward the cameras again. Confidence becomes dangerous when people can't afford reality. The crowd laughed louder. But suddenly the laughter stopped. An older man standing near the back dropped his glass onto the pavement. His eyes locked onto Solomon's car. And he looked terrified. Whispers spread quickly. That's Ray Titan Lawson. Racing legend. Champion. Collector. Even Jack Morton straightened nervously. Ray slowly walked toward Solomon's car like he was seeing a ghost. His daughter Jessica followed. Dad? Ray ignored her. His eyes stayed fixed on the frame beneath the rusted panels. Then he whispered, That marking. Solomon felt uneasy immediately. Ray looked at him. Who owned this car? My father. What was his name? Daniel Postle. Ray froze. The parking lot went silent. Ray touched the hood trembling. I knew it. Solomon frowned. Knew what? Your father disappeared with this car after the championship fire. Confused whispers spread. Years earlier, a rare prototype racing car vanished after a deadly crash. Collectors searched for decades. Now it was here. Hidden beneath Solomon's broken sedan. Angelina's smile disappeared. Jack changed instantly. Well, this is incredible. Ray turned to Solomon. Do you know what you're driving? Solomon shook his head. One of the rarest racing builds ever made. Gasps spread. Cameras flashed. Seth looked at his father in shock. Ray stepped closer. I searched half my life for this car. Then came the moment nobody expected. "I'll offer you $2 million for it." The crowd exploded. Seth grabbed Solomon's arm tightly. That money could change everything. But Solomon looked at the car differently. It wasn't just metal. It held memories. His wife's last ride. His father's silence. His entire past. Ray noticed his hesitation. "You don't need to decide now." Then he added something darker. "There's a reason your father hid it. Dangerous people wanted it." Solomon's chest tightened. This wasn't over. Rain poured outside Cooper's garage. Solomon sat beside the car while Seth slept nearby. Ray arrived with Jessica. "I owe your father an apology." He explained everything. Daniel Postle refused corrupt investors. So he hid the car. Jessica showed an old photo. Young Ray. Young Daniel. Smiling beside the car. Solomon's eyes burned. Ray looked at Seth. "Your father chose family over fame." Then he offered Solomon something unexpected. A place in their restoration team. Not just money. A future. Seth woke up quietly. Ray smiled at him. "Your dad is special." Seth nodded. "I know." For the first time, Solomon felt hope again. 3 months later, life changed. The car was sold to Ray's company. Solomon moved into a small home with Seth. Simple. Quiet. Safe. At the workshop, Solomon earned respect for his skill. Not his past. One day Angelina returned alone. No cameras. Just regret. "I was wrong," she said softly. Seth read her apology letter later. "Do you forgive her?" Solomon answered carefully. "I forgive people who truly change." Weeks later, Ray brought them to a racing event. He pointed to Solomon on stage. "This man saw value where others saw nothing." The crowd stood. Seth held his father's hand tightly. And Solomon finally understood. He was never just a man with a broken car. He was a father who never gave up. Some stories are not about machines. They are about fathers who refused to quit. Solomon never chased attention. He just protected his son every single day. Even when life was cruel. Even when people laughed. That quiet strength changed everything. Not money. Not fame. But love. Before we end, here's the question. Angelina humiliated Solomon before knowing the truth. Now that everything is revealed, did he do the right thing forgiving her? Team forgive or team walk away? Share your thoughts. And if this story touched you, like the videos so more people can see it. If you are a single parent, comment below. Your story matters. And subscribe to the Redeemed Single Dad for more emotional stories like this. Thank you for watching. And remember this. People laugh at what they don't understand, until life finally reveals the truth.